Stop blaming a 2,000-year-old lowly or a space worm for the apocalypse. The extinction of humanity in Attack on Titan didn't start with Ymir making contact with the source of all living matter. It started in a claustrophobic room in Liberio, the exact moment a pathetic, traumatized father decided to turn his firstborn son into a political weapon. The rumbling isn't a geopolitical inevitability, it is simply the absolute manifestation of atrocious parenting. Grisha Yeager is not a tragic victim of the times, and he sure as hell isn't some unsung Eldian hero. My take? He is the walking, talking nuclear warhead of generational trauma. Stop lying to yourself about Eren and Zeke having free will. Neither of these boys ever had agency. They were simply two extreme psychological polarities programmed by their father's cowardice and monumental failures. Grisha was a shattered man who refused to heal his psychological wounds, choosing instead to bleed all over his children. He built a trauma loop so severe it literally leveled the earth. He is the mastermind who accidentally destroyed the world, not through tactical brilliance, but through the sheer, unadulterated negligence of pushing his own unresolved agony onto the next generation. To understand the true villain of this masterpiece, look past the Titans and look directly at the man holding the syringe. Here is the kicker. The crux of this entire apocalyptic narrative boils down to a sickening contrast in how Grisha raised his two sons. This is where the psychological horror of Attack on Titan truly shines, and it exposes Grisha as an absolute fraud. Look at Zeke, the first experiment. Grisha looked at an innocent child and saw nothing but a vessel for his own thwarted rebellion. He indoctrinated Zeke the moment the boy comprehended language, stripping away his childhood to forge an Eldian savior. Grisha projected every ounce of his hatred, his survivor's guilt over Faye, and his burning inadequacy onto a little boy who just wanted to play catch with his dad. And what was the result? Zeke didn't become a savior, he became a raging nihilist. By treating his son as a tool for a nationalist agenda, Grisha birthed a man plagued by antinatalism who believed the greatest mercy for the Eldian race was to be euthanized out of existence. Zeke's entire life mission was desperate, unconscious retaliation against the burden his father forced upon him. But wait, Grisha learned his lesson, right? He fled to Paradise, started a new family, and decided to do things differently. Absolute garbage. Grisha didn't fix his parenting, he just inverted the toxicity. With Eren, he swung the pendulum to the absolute opposite extreme. Terrified of repeating mistakes made with Zeke, Grisha gave Eren unrestricted, unguided, and toxic freedom. He let Eren's infantile black-and-white worldview fester. He saw the violent, unyielding rage in Eren, a kid who brutally murdered grown men at the age of 9 and did absolutely nothing to correct that psychological anomaly. Instead of giving him tools to process the harsh world, he handed him the keys to godlike power. Grisha raised two apocalyptic threats. One son developed a god complex, fully committed to chemically castrating an entire race because existence itself was deemed too painful. The other son developed an absolute psychotic obsession with a hyper-individualistic concept of freedom, willing to trample billions of innocent lives under colossal feet just to protect his own ideological cage. This is no coincidence. This is the mathematical result of a father who failed to process his own trauma. Grisha was a conduit for suffering. He took the brutal subjugation of the Marleyan state, internalized it, and exported it directly into the minds of his children. He weaponized them. One was crushed by expectations, the other was ruined by the absolute absence of boundaries. Now we go deeper. This is peak fiction because Hajime Isayama forces us to stare into the abyss of a generational trauma loop. It operates like a devastating inherited disease, mutating and growing deadlier with each passing generation. It started with Grandpa Yeager. Faced with the crushing, humiliating oppression of the Marleyan regime, the old man chose absolute submission. He bowed his head, swallowed his pride, and brainwashed his own family just to survive. That pathetic submission bred intense resentment in Grisha. Grisha's response to his father's cowardice was rebellion, but it was a weak, impotent rebellion that ultimately got his sister fed to dogs and his comrades turned into mindless monsters. Fundamentally powerless, Grisha passed the baton to Zeke. Zeke's response to Grisha's fanatical, suffocating pressure was suicidal nihilism. And finally, we reach Eren. Eren's response to the culmination of all this inherited misery was absolute, unadulterated annihilation. Submission to rebellion, to self-destruction, to global genocide. Each generation tried solving the trauma of the last, only escalating the violence to a catastrophic scale. Grisha is the fatal pivot point in this timeline. He is the bridge where localized political misery transformed into a global extinction event. The absolute poetry of Grisha's character arc culminates in the cavern under the rice chapel. This is the moment the illusion shatters. Grisha stands there, holding the scalpel, hesitant, crying, completely broken. He is a doctor whose hands are meant to heal, yet he knows he is about to butcher an entire family, including children. He tries to back out. He tries to reclaim his humanity. But what happens? His own son, Eren, the monster he unleashed through his negligent parenting, whispers in his ear. Eren weaponizes Grisha's own trauma against him. He reminds Grisha of Faye, of Kruger, of Dina. Eren uses the very trauma Grisha failed to overcome to puppeteer him into committing mass murder. The irony is suffocating. Grisha thought he was writing the story, but he realizes in his most agonizing moment that he was nothing more than a pathetic pawn in a script written by the very demon he raised. He is forced to eat Frida rice, sealing the fate of the world, pushed over the edge by the manifestation of his own failures. I already hear the defensive crying in the comments. But Anime Titan, Grisha repented. He saw the horrific future. He hugged Zeke, broke down in tears, and literally begged him to stop Eren. Stop it. That argument is absolute fraud. You think shedding a few tears at the 11th hour absolves him of orchestrating the end of the world? Let's be brutally honest. That apology was 20 years too late, and begging him to stop Eren was the ultimate act of cowardice. It was a pathetic attempt to shift the responsibility onto the very son he ruined. If Grisha truly wanted to stop the rumbling, if he had a spine, he wouldn't have handed the founding titan to Eren immediately after leaving that cavern. He saw the hellish future, he knew exactly what Eren was going to do, and he still injected his son with that serum. His remorse doesn't erase decades of psychological manipulation. His tears were a selfish release valve for his guilt, a cheap catharsis changing absolutely nothing about the impending doom. The greatest antagonist in Attack on Titan doesn't have armor or hide behind gigantic walls. The true enemy is the silent, insidious shadow of parents who project their unhealed scars onto their offspring. Grisha Yeager didn't need to be a villain in a cape to destroy humanity. He only needed to be a deeply flawed, selfish father. He proves that when you fail to conquer your own demons, you inevitably pass them down until they consume the world. Tell me, do you still think Eren's genocide was born out of a desire for freedom, or was he just executing a trauma response programmed by the worst father in anime history? Drop furious arguments in the comments below. Anime Titan, out.